and welcome to StudyIQ English, your favorite UPSC platform in India. Let's talk about how the NITI Aayog today is giving a strong push to pulse cultivation. Pulses are not just the backbone of a strong nutrition based diet, but also in a country like India, where already the disease burden is becoming quite high and the people need to be inculcated with the habit of consuming more protein rather than purely carbohydrates and cereal based diets, pulses could mean wonders. Today, the Niti Aayog says the same thing. And it is all about how the Indian government now wants to become self sufficient, Atmanirbhar in pulses cultivation. Now, the problem started from the Green Revolution in the 1960s. During the Green Revolution, India was trying to battle food insecurity. We wanted to become self reliant in the cultivation of wheat and rice. Therefore, the government not only introduced high yielding varieties of wheat and rice in India, but also the government started giving the minimum support price MSP to majority of farmers for them to cultivate rice and wheat. The purpose was to become self dependent. The purpose was to battle hunger. But in that process, a side effect happened. That's known as hidden hunger. We kept on cultivating rice, wheat. We could not focus on pulses and millets. And eventually, what happened? In areas like Punjab, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, that benefited the most from Green Revolution, the high yielding variety program excluded the pulses. It was only focusing on rice and wheat. Therefore, in majority of other states like Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, pulses became a residual crop rather than the main crop. And then came monoculture of rice and wheat. So pulses completely took the backseat. And how did that result in India's health? People became protein deficit. India, one of the highest protein hungry countries of the world. Indian women, one of the highest communities in the world who report the case of malnourishment and anemia. Yes, India is becoming the capital of insulin resistance and cardiovascular diseases because we do not consume the right protein. In fact, we are too focused on eating carbs. And the reason is the faulty food pattern that was encouraged during Green Revolution. So today the Niti Aayog says not just to improve the health of our people, but also to improve India's export capacity, India's self-sufficiency or Atmanirbharta. Let's focus more on the pulse cultivation, and this is the new Pulse Revolution 2.0. India is living in a paradox right now. What an irony it is that while India is the largest producer, consumer, and importer of pulses, can you imagine? Not only are we the largest producer and consumer, but also the largest importer of pulses, which means although consumption is high, production is high too, but we still need to depend on inputs from outside. Despite a growth in the output, the problem is that there is a gap. The demand is too high, supply is minimal, and it's this inflation that makes us more and more import dependent. So, as we are going Atmanirbhar across defense, energy, it's high time we also become self sufficient in pulse cultivation. That's the sentiment given by Niti Aayog today, the National Institute for Transforming India, India's new think tank that is the spearhead of our cooperative federalism. Who are the major states which produce pulses in India? So we have Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan, which are the major pulse producers. And top 10 states in India are contributing more than 90% to entire national output of pulses. Talking about which seasons predominate pulse cultivation, then it is always the Kharif, then comes the Rabi season, and then the summertime. That means pulses are grown across the year. So whether it's Rabi, whether it's Kharif, in between we have the Zaid season also. But we see that in pockets, pulses are being cultivated across the country, majority of the year. Now, the key crops that we grow, even in the pulses, happen to be the pigeon pea, that's known as the tur. Then we have the black gram, which is called colloquially as urad. And then, of course, we have the lentil pulse, that's known as masoor locally. These are the key top producing cereals in terms of pulse cultivation when we talk about. Now, if we look at the production chart, then we will believe that yes, India has done a great job indeed, because in 2015 and 2016, it was 16.35 That was the total megaton production. And India also needed just 6 MTs of import. But talking about 22 to 23 financial year, India's production boosted to 26.06 tons, which means it is a rise of more than 55%, just double. Productivity in pulse cultivation also rose by 38%. And our import dependence fell down from 29% to only about 11 or 10%. That's a great news. And let's also remember that 80% of pulses in India are grown in rain fed areas. Now, please don't get confused here. Sometimes UPSC prelim questions can be very tricky. They may ask you that pulses are majorly cultivated in irrigated areas, but we are talking about rain fed areas here. Totally, the pulse cultivation is supporting more than 5 crore Indian farmers. Here is a map which is depicting the states where major pulse cultivation happens in the country. And on that note, let's also remember that what is the importance of pulse to Indian economy and society? Now, the importance is huge. One, because, as I said, India is a major home to people with malnourishment. Yes, people lack micronutrition in India. Our food palettes are predominated by fats and carbohydrates, and that's where pulses come in because pulses or grams, whatever you call them, they provide protein, they provide essential amino acids. They also fight malnutrition, therefore. Then, talking about agriculture and land, pulses enable soil fertility, whereas monocropping or monoculture agriculture will lead to a loss of nutrition in soil. Monoculture also makes a farmer more dependent on pesticides and fertilizer. Eventually, soil becomes saline through capillary action, something that's exceedingly common in Haryana, Punjab. Same thing can be said about rice cultivation. I told you just a while back that rice today is being called as the new coal in India. In fact, the world over, because rice has always grown in waterlogged areas, which leads to more methane secretion. But that's not the case with pulses. Once we grow pulses in the soil, it leads to nitrogen fixation in the soil. That means the fertility of the soil just doubles up. Especially pulses called legumes are the best aid of the farmer when it comes to nitrogen fixation and aeration of the soil. Now, talking about water efficiency, pulses usually grow in rain fed areas, which means they are not too much demanding on water, quite unlike rice. Rice is very, very water intensive, but pulses are not, just like millets are not. And then we say lower carbon footprint, of course, yes, because as compared to cereals like rice, wheat, pulses do not have a major carbon emission associated with them. So therefore, they are quite environmentally friendly. They are supporting majority of rural households, rural livelihoods in India. But pulse cultivation has been seeing a challenge. As I said, India is living in a paradox. We are the largest consumer, the largest producer of pulse, and still we have to import. Even if it's reduced and now it's 10%, but still we do import. The reasons are it is pulse cultivation deeply depends on rain, and in India, rains are very unpredictable. We quite know that a southwest monsoon that kicks in by July and then it stays here until September. It follows a very, very vague pattern, sometimes owing to global climatic influences like El Nino, La Nina. Things just don't work right for the farmers. The rainfall is deficit, like it happened in 2024. And this year, the rain has been in abundance. Hence, since agriculture is more or less climate dependent in India, and pulse specifically is a rain fed crop, there are always unpredictable returns. Droughts mean absolute loss to pulse farmers. Now, talking about regional concentration, there are areas in the country who are quite vulnerable to climate shocks. For example, if we consider the hilly states, say the southern Uttarakhand, that's quite fertile, being in the Shivalik range. We talk about Himachal, we could talk about the northeast. Here, in places like these, they are quite prone to repeated flooding, to repeated flash floods, to repeated cloudbursts. And hence, pulse cultivation in these areas is never really successful. And then we talk about other states. For example, UP, MP, Tamil Nadu, where yes, there is a good amount of pulse cultivation, even these are off late becoming sensitive to climate change. The heat waves are increasing. summer is getting prolonged, and rain is very unpredictable. All of that results in a poor gross output of pulses. Now, let's say India's total production capacity, it may be quite high, and we have improved in just 10 years by 50%. But talking about global average, still we have yield gaps. We do not have predictable outcomes every year. At the same time, there is low adoption of improved variety of seeds. Now, majority of Indian farmers are medium scale to poor farmers. For them, purchasing high yielding variety of pulses again is a challenge. And even today, although the government is trying to give MSP on many other products, but pulse does not attract a very lucrative MSP. So therefore, farmers find it difficult to buy rich varieties of seeds and technology. Then there is always a danger of storage and warehousing. A lot of food gets wasted because we do not have the right cold storage mechanisms. There are transportation challenges, climate challenges, there are often political controversies. Because of that, after harvesting, also much food gets wasted. So, have we made any progress so far? Yes, we have. Because if we talk about 2015 to 2016, our production has jumped since then to now, about more than 55%, which means today, as I said earlier, Indian imports have fallen to mere 10.4%. So, what is the new NITI Aayog suggestion here? NITI Aayog, in its new report of 2025, wants India to become Atmanirbhar in pulse cultivation. It says, let's expand the total area available for pulse cultivation and let's go for diversification. 12 major pulse crops in India that are grown across the year. Kharif season, Rabi season, Zaid season, summer season. The government wants them to be grown throughout the year and the area under them has to increase. Second thing is government wants to target 111 high potential districts. Districts which are today contributing to a majority of pulse output, 75% of it. The government will target it further. Government will provide farmers here better variety of seeds. Then comes the one block, one seed village. Under here, the government is creating the one seed village model so that various small clusters and hamlets and villages can propagate one particular variety of pulse. Overall, it will help us in not only diversifying pulse cultivation, but also the output will shoot up. Then comes promoting some such variety of pulses which are better at handling droughts. As I said, Indian monsoons can be quite unpredictable, and pulse being a rain intensive crop would need to be taken care of in the case of climate shocks. Hence, the government is promoting high yielding variety seeds which shall be distributed to the farmers. Many of them are drought resistant. They will propagate even in case of lower rainfall. And then government will also provide treatment kits to people for medicines, for organic pesticides, organic fertilizers. Another thing is government wants to have an agenda where farmers get digital participation. Now, farmers should be connected to online services, online training sessions, online workshops. All of this is to promote adoption of modern irrigation, modern farming methods. And then the government also says, the Niti Aayog also says, we have to take care of post harvest also. Once the crop is harvested, let's invest more in better storage and warehouses. We have to have a better infrastructure, whether it's transport, roadways, or whether it's about storage facilities. We have to make sure there is no wastage, no rotting, no fungal infection, no pest attack. And for that, the government is encouraging another industry today. That's the food processing industry. We all know processed foods are not good. But at the same time, the government is saying, why can't we have some such processed foods that do not contain any dangerous chemical? They are just made up of pulses. In fact, they are fortified. When you fortify a food, you add additional supplement to it. For example, vitamin D and calcium fortified rice, protein fortified rice and wheat. These are all the new biogenetically available varieties of food. So let's also fortify the pulse based snacks. That could be ready to cook, that could be ready to eat. Ultimately, we are just improving the protein consumption by the people. Now, yes, of course, it also causes sometimes arguments. Like, does fortification have a good bioavailability? Which means people say, doctors say sometimes that fortified foods are difficult to be absorbed by the body. Body is capable of absorbing natural foods, not fortified ones. And that's another medical debate that perhaps will come in picture later. But right now, the government is quite keen on promoting pulse cultivation, pulse storage, and pulse consumption. So, what do we expect as a result of all these interventions? Yes, we do expect that domestic supply by 2030 will cross 30.59 MT. And by 2047, that's also the target year for Viksit Bharat, when India completely wants to become Atmanirbhar across various domains. We want to expand this production to 45.79 megatons. Now, long-term goal, therefore, is to reduce problems like malnourishment, reduce problems like wasting and stunting among Indian children, improve maternal and child health. Another controversy has come up. It says that although government is saying infant mortality rate in India is declining, but the rural people have another story to tell. Maybe we can take that as another topic. But right now, the goal for pulse self sufficiency and absorption is to tackle malnourishment, to make India self sufficient completely in the coming few years in pulse cultivation. Ultimately, it's about addressing a health need, addressing a climatic need, and addressing an economic need at the same time. So, now let's have a quick look at the prelims question. Consider the following statements regarding pulse production in India. 1. India is the world's largest producer, consumer, and importer of pulses. 2. Nearly 80% of India's pulse production comes from rain fed areas. 3. Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Rajasthan together contribute to half of India's pulse production. So, which of these statements do you think is or could be valid? Yes, you can post your answers. You can leave a thread for interesting discussion. We can learn together. All aspirants can evolve together. We can share our opinions. Should you have a doubt, query, question, absolutely you can communicate through the comment box here. And if you enjoy such short videos, then do not forget to like, share, subscribe, study IQ English. Thank you so much.